There's been a couple of times today, I know that you have heard and you may continue to hear about a ministry action plan. And for many of you, that may be an unfamiliar term, and rightfully so, because it's something that the Ministries Council adopted this year. We spent some time just trying to think and pray and vision, what is it that God wants to accomplish? We have this goal of filling Oklahoma with the love of Jesus. We even have a strategy that is in place where we say we want to accomplish that by investing in pastors and churches, connecting them with God and each other, and encouraging them to reach the world for Jesus. And those are amazing and incredible things, and those are the ways that we're going to see the advancement of this vision and mission that God has put us on. But one of the things that I was looking at in prayer as I was praying about leading this past year was just what kind of culture do we want to see in the state of Oklahoma, and what kind of culture would allow for that kind of advancement to happen. We all know as we lead in different places that culture is such a huge part of what we do. If you're trying to do something and the culture is fighting against us, well, we're just going to be spinning our wheels, because the culture is so powerful whenever it comes to change and advancement. I've heard someone say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's true, right? We know that. So one of the things that we were looking at this year is just this statement that we've tried to embrace by some of our partnership with Ignite, the Ignite ministry that we have been doing over the last couple of years, trying to see an investment in the lives of pastors. And there's this statement that we use in Ignite, and it's this. It says that out of the soul of the leader flows the health of the body. And that's a statement that has really kind of been driven deep into my heart. And as I'm praying about leading, I have to pray, like, God, how is my heart, or how is my soul affecting the environment in which I lead? Because if the health of the thing that I lead ultimately flows out of my soul and the health of my soul, then what do I need to do in me? And how can I be changed that would allow the mission of God to advance? And as I was praying about that, it became very clear to me that one of the places where we need to spend the most of our time, and one of the places where we need to make the most concerted effort, is in the soul and the heart and the health of the leader. Here's the deal. If we want to fill Oklahoma with the love of Jesus, the only way that we're going to be able to accomplish that, as I said before, is through the church, through the local church. And in order to do that, we have to have healthy churches. But if we're going to have healthy churches, and we believe that their health flows out of the soul of the person that is leading them, then we have to know that in order to have healthy churches, we have to have healthy leaders. And so as I was praying through that, and as we were considering that as the Ministries Council, one of the things that we came to was this, that in order for us to see the greatest impact in the state of Oklahoma, and to advance the mission by filling Oklahoma with the love of Jesus, the greatest impact will be when we invest in the spiritual health of local leaders. I was asking this question: God, what is it that the church needs more than anything else? And I think all of us could agree that it'd be very easy for us to say, what we need more than anything else is the presence of God in what we're doing, in our midst. Like, that is what we have that other faiths, that other religions don't have. We serve a living God. Well, that one seems a little bit too easy. It's like low-hanging fruit. Maybe you would say it's like a Sunday school answer. What do we need more than anything else? We need God. Well, but what do our churches need more than anything else if God is the ultimate answer to our need? Well, what we have kind of come to is that the church's greatest need in Oklahoma, but I believe that this is beyond Oklahoma, even across the country and around the world, that the church's greatest need is leaders who are chasing after the heart of God. If we have leaders who are chasing after the heart of God, and they are leading people then we would assume that those people will be chasing after the heart of God. And if God is what our churches need more than anything else, if His presence, if His power, if the move of His Spirit is what we need more than anything else, then the greatest need of the church is leaders who are chasing after the heart of God. And so for us, again, to see the greatest impact, we must invest in the spiritual health of local leaders. Now, it's easy for us to think that that means we want to invest in pastors. And it's true, we want to invest in pastors. Pastors are the connection point for us as we're looking at leadership at the local level. But it's not just pastors. We also see that there is a great need for to enrich the spiritual health and the spiritual life of local leaders that are not pastors. Because there are leaders, and some of you are watching this, there are leaders at every church around the state that are not ordained or licensed ministers. Yet they are leading in the kingdom of God, and they are critical to the mission of God in Oklahoma. As a part of this, we have kind of laid out a ministry action plan. As I said before, you've heard it talked about. You've heard us talk about funding it and finding ways to do it. And really, this ministry action plan, once it was adopted by the Ministries Council this year, it really became a tool for us as we made decisions. So where do we send money? What do we do? And what kind of initiatives are we going to try to accomplish? We use this ministry action plan to kind of give us guidance in all of those areas. And this ministry action plan just lays out 6 things that we want to see happen in order for us to establish a culture within the state of Oklahoma of healthy, strong spiritual leaders at the local level. The first piece of the ministry action plan is this: to let pastors know that they matter. That may sound insignificant, it may sound overly simple, but here's the deal. One area where the enemy attacks at the local church level is in the pastors and making them feel like they're not valued, or that they're less than, or that they're not accomplishing everything that God would want them to do. And what we believe is that God has placed leaders where they are, and He has placed them there for a reason. And so you have to know as a leader, whether you're a pastor or whether you're not a pastor, whether you're serving in a volunteer capacity, whatever it is, you have to know that you matter, that you are a part of what God is doing, not just in your local church, not just in the state of Oklahoma, but one of the most significant places where you matter is in your leadership within your family and your circle of friends. Like, that is really where God's work starts. It's at the grassroots level. And so we want pastors and leaders to know that they matter. We want to find ways to partner with local congregations to help their leaders feel like they matter. We want to raise awareness of some of the struggles and the complications that leaders face at the local level. And we want to find ways to encourage and resource the efforts of local congregations as they honor and they support their leaders. The second thing is that we want to let pastors' families know that they matter. You may have picked up on it, but as I just said a moment ago, one of the most significant places where you can lead is in your family. But also one of the most valuable things that you have as a leader is your family. And we believe that so many times, or I believe this wholeheartedly, so many times pastors' families and leaders' families are overlooked. They feel like they're second rate and like maybe they don't matter when it comes to the grand vision and the grand scheme of things. But what we know is this, that pastors' families, leaders' families matter. And so we're looking for ways that we can partner with other ministries around the state and even in other places where we can see and fuel an investment into the family. This might look like conferences or just different resources where we could enrich the marriage or enrich other family environments with it for the leader. And we're even looking at trying to find, is there one way that we could do this, maybe yearly, where we could bring leaders and their families together and really invest in them as a whole, not just the pastor, whether it be the husband or the wife, not just that person, but how do we invest in the family as a whole? And one of the things that you've heard about, or that you will hear about, if you click over on Wayne's unpacking of the financials and the budget and all that kind of stuff, you're going to hear him talk about the endowment, and you heard Tim talk about that a few moments ago. And we had this situation this year where we had this endowment income that wasn't being used, and we had to look at how are we going to use that going forward. And one of the things that we did as ministries council and executive councils, we spent time in prayer asking God, what is it that you're trying to do with this sum of money? We have ministry that we know we accomplish. We do certain things every year. But what is it that you might be trying to accomplish that is, maybe it's not even on our radar? And this is one of the ways that we looked at the ministry action plan and we kind of said, okay, what is it that we have on this action plan that we don't currently have the resources to accomplish? And one of this was this idea of how do we find ways to encourage and enrich the lives of pastors and their families. These first 2 points that I was talking about. And so we prayerfully considered that. And I'm really excited to think that in the midst of all the stuff that we've experienced this year with COVID-19 and just the unrest in our nation and the uncertainties of financial situation for sure, that we have the opportunity to invest in the health and the wellness of leaders and their families in the state of Oklahoma, and really doesn't affect our financial picture going forward. Like, it's amazing to me that God has provided in this way. And so it ends up being, this $19,000 that we have the opportunity to set aside for an investment in our leaders and in their families going forward, not all at one time, but it allows us to actually plan that we could see some amazing things happen over the course of the next several years in this idea of investing in really a place that is so needed for our pastors, for their families, and for the leaders at the local level. The third piece of the ministry action plan is a strategic investment in the spiritual health of Oklahoma pastors. And this is something that we've actually already started doing. Some of you are experiencing this firsthand. Others of you will have opportunity in the coming year. And really the goal is to see that every staff minister in the state would be able to experience an Ignite learning community where we would see a real tangible investment in the spiritual health of our pastors. But if you haven't already, you will see some testimony about what Ignite means and what it has meant in the hearts of leaders as they've experienced it. And this is one of the things that I'm really most excited about, is that we've seen this piece of strategic ministry grow over the last couple of years, and we really see opportunities for it to continue to grow going forward. One of the things that we see in the Ignite Learning community is that it becomes a place of encouragement, and it becomes a place of empowerment, and over time it becomes what we're calling a community of blessing. Now you may wonder, what is a community of blessing? Well, what a community of blessing does is it empowers ministry really for the rest of a pastor's life. It's kind of staggering to think what the implications of this community of blessing are. And the beauty of the community of blessing is that it naturally flows out of the relationships that are built and the calling that is discovered in the Ignite Learning community. And because of that, the community of blessing doesn't even cost any money. It's like something that just happens, and that it has to be nurtured and maintained over the course of time. But as these leaders are going through Ignite, and as they're learning about their calling and discovering what God is doing in them and in others, and as they're building those relationships, this community of blessings takes shape over time. It takes some time. It's an investment because it's about relationship. It's about trust. But what we're finding is that the time that it takes is usually maybe takes a couple of years of relational investment. But that's well within the average tenure of a pastor. And so what we are excited about is that as we see pastors in the state of Oklahoma, it's a realistic goal that we could see them enter into this community of blessing and experience the richness of it as a result of their time in the state. This will, what we hope, will increase the length of time that a pastor stays in a given assignment. And as I said before, it doesn't cost anything because it's fueled by the other things that we're doing. but really it becomes a blessing for them and far beyond their time in the state even. So if a pastor is in the state for a few years and they are a part of an Ignite Learning community that develops into a community of blessing, it follows that leader beyond the borders of our state. And so we actually have the opportunity to have a positive kingdom impact across the country and across the world through these relational investments. And it doesn't cost us any money. It's a really exciting thing. The other two things that we see as a part of this ministry action plan, the fifth one is establishing a culture of spiritual leadership in every congregation. Here's what I think it looks like. It looks like a pastor who's following the leadership of the Spirit. It looks like congregational leaders who are following the leadership of the Spirit. And it looks like a congregation that understands that they have a pastor and leaders who are following the Spirit together so that they then trust and follow them in their leadership as they are following the leadership of God. We think we can do this by partnering with pastors, by supporting and resourcing congregational leaders. This is an opportunity maybe at some point in the future for us to find ways to bring leaders together from different congregations so that they can grow together. We also feel like this is a really important and critical moment during transition. Many of you know we have several congregations who have gone through transition in the past year. Some of you may be going through that in the years to come. And transition is a really difficult time, and where a congregation oftentimes has been depending on the leadership of a pastor. Now all of a sudden, congregational leaders are having to step up and make some really tough decisions. And so what a church needs during a time of transition, again, just like any other time, is spiritual leaders who are chasing after the heart of God. And so how do we accomplish that in the local church? That's what this fifth piece is all about. It's really establishing a culture, again, of spiritual leadership. And what if we could do that in every congregation around the state? I think we would start to see the needle move on our mission for filling Oklahoma with the love of Jesus. The last piece, the sixth piece of this ministry action plan, is to see Oklahoma churches become sending churches that will multiply across the state. What I know is that we have not done a whole lot of multiplication. We've not done a lot of church planting in recent years. But it's something that as we talk with leaders around the state, so many people say, I would love to see us planting churches. Well, what we know is that we need healthy churches that can multiply and can send culture, that culture of spiritual leadership, into new places in order for churches to be planted. And this is really a point where we see significant progress in filling Oklahoma with the love of Jesus, because we go beyond the places where we are already established, and we see the movement of God in new places and in new territory. This goes beyond church planting, as I said before, to transplanting culture. And so what we want to see is the culture of spiritual leadership raised within the local church, and then find ways to partner with the local church and with the state ministry and maybe other strategic partners to see this move of God. This is one area, this and number 5 that I was just talking about, where the Ministries Council has already said we've got to take an asserted effort to evaluate these things and to look at like how can we accomplish these things going forward. And so in 2021 and in the rest of 2020, the Ministries Council has already stated that we are going to look at how do we start to see this kind of thing happen, where the culture of spiritual leadership can be multiplied across the state. Now, I don't know about you, but this ministry action plan is something that is very exciting to me. I can say that it's been very helpful for us as we've led this year, especially in the midst of all the craziness. It's given us something that we can go to and say, okay, we've agreed on this. This is what we're going to accomplish. And it's been a real blessing for all of us. I think it will be a blessing for the state as we see God lead us forward in all of this. And as I just said before, there's a couple of things that we're going to be advancing this year, which is just some conversations about how do we see multiplication happen, and where do what churches and where is there opportunities for multiplication in the state. Another thing that I look at as I look forward is a couple of years ago we proposed an idea of regional ministry and how we were going to have people in place to accomplish special or specific things in different regions primarily connecting the leaders that are in those regions. And we have established that. It's something that really has, during COVID especially, kind of taken a back seat. But we see, or I see, the opportunity to advance this ministry action plan through this infrastructure that we already have kind of put in place of regional leaders and regional connection. And so I really think that we're in a unique place this year where we have the opportunity to go forward in some of the things that God is leading us to. He's already showing us that He can provide to accomplish these things, even in a year where it seems like it might not be possible. And we know that He is equipping and raising up leaders in the state of Oklahoma that really are prepared and equipped and proven to be able to lead in difficult times. And so as you're gathered here today and doing something in a very different way, we see that this is a plan for us to move forward. We know we might have to do it in different ways. We think God is equipping us to do that. And so as you consider all the things that you're hearing today in this informational video, maybe you'll click on the other video about the financial details. As you're hearing all of this, what I would ask of you is this thing. Don't just rush through all this and hear it, and don't just click on the ballot link that you received in an email and vote really quick. But before you do it, just pray and ask God for guidance. Ask Him to show you. Ask Him to spark something and ignite something in your heart as you hear these things and see what God stirs in you. Because I know this, that there are people all over the state of Oklahoma that God loves deeply and that He wants to know Him and come into a relationship with Him and know Him. And we want to be a part of that mission of filling Oklahoma with the love of Jesus. But we can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. We have to do it together, walking shoulder to shoulder, arms locked, advancing the mission of God. And we can do that. We can see that happen as we work together. And so I'm looking forward to leading and to following God in the next year, leading with the leaders that are a part of this team that are incredible leaders. Looking forward to anything and everything that God has in store for us. Hopefully seeing some things come back to normal, but then also continuing some things that we've learned in the midst of a very unnormal time. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to lead. Thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity for the last year. And even though it's been crazy, and even though it's been wild and unexpected, it's been an amazing blessing. And I believe that I can speak for the whole of the Ministries Council and all of those that are serving on different ministry teams by saying that this has been an amazing blessing, an amazing opportunity, and that we're excited to see what God is doing going forward. Thank you.